What's going on, everybody? So today we are at Trinity Tuning. I'm gonna go visit his shop and meet Jay, the owner. And we are pretty much in Skyline heaven here. As you can see, got Evos, got a bunch of Japanese cars here, but he seems to do a lot of Skyline stuff, and he's gonna tell us all about it and how he started the shop. And we're just gonna visit with him and just chat.
My first name is Josiah Joseph. I'm the owner of Trinity Tuning. I used to work for another shop, and the fabricator at that shop told me one day, because I used to do a lot of side work, that I should make my own shop and name it Trinity Tuning since I'm from Trinidad. But I was kind of like not really into that reasoning behind the name, because it's kind of like a basic reasoning behind why you would call your shop Trinity Tuning. So I ended up realizing that three things for a car to run is air, fuel, and spark, and thus it makes a Trinity, and thus Trinity Tuning is for that. Plus, I tune cars for a living, so that's where the tuning aspect comes from. I can fabricate, but I'm not a fabricator in any means. I'm more of a mechanic, engine builder, tuner, anything like that. I have my own fabricator that does all my fabrication work, so if there is any fabrication, he can do it. But I personally don't do any fabrication myself. I used to work for the shop Houston, which they used to build GTRs for a long time, and they still do. I worked for them for about 3 years, and then I left. And when I left, I kind of did some tuning moreover, but I always was doing side work at my house on more Japanese cars. That's where I originally started. So to me, it was kind of like easy for me to go from the shop Houston working on their GTRs, and even before then working at Nissan for 4 years. To then coming in and then kind of picking up the right-hand drive aspect and learning that, and then working on actual old school GTRs as well. I was already working with RB engines at my house when I was back home in PA working at Nissan, so it wasn't anything like I was not accustomed to them. It was moreover, I've just never physically had hands-on with like Skylines themselves until I came to Texas. But before then I was already dealing with RB20s, RB25s, RB26s, 1Js, 2J swaps, like all of that I already was doing up north. So coming down here, it just kind of felt normal and natural for me to go back into the older cars in that aspect, but like kind of modernizing the old school for the most part. As long as it's Japanese, European, even American cars, I'll touch them. It doesn't bother me. I just won't like go in depth on tuning like Dodges and Mustangs. There's still too much for that. I'll work on them. I'll do supercharger kits, turbo kits, whatever it is. But I have my own tuner for Dodges and Mustangs already. Everything else, though, I'll tune and I'll touch it, no problems. Most of the time when a customer comes over to me or they ask about a build or they want to do anything in a car, it's a lot of shops from what I've seen, they kind of just give them, here's a kit and this is what you're going to make from that kit kind of thing, you know? So to me, it's like, that's fine. It's very easy and very consistent. So yes, those cars will always be running all the time, but the customer also kind of is not part of their build at that point to me. They're kind of like, I'm giving you a kit. This is what you're going to get. That's all it is. If you wanted to run a different turbo, if you were doing research on your own, you wanted to be a little bit more knowledgeable yourself on something, and you're like, oh, I want to run these type of fans compared to these because I heard these run better. Or I want to run this turbo because I see that it spools a little bit quicker. Most of the time, if my customer wants to do something like that, that's fine. I have no problems with that. I would rather them do something like that, give me a little bit of information, and then I can tell them whether or not it's going to be good for the setup for what they want to do. If they end up wanting to switch it out later on for a different setup, let's say they wanted to do a drift setup at like 550 wheel, And then they also want to, later on, they might switch up to the track setup, like what you were talking about. And the turbo, let's say, is just, one is the turbo is too big or too small. Most of the time, I would set up the car mostly around what you want to do. And then if you want to do something else later on, it has the leeway to be able to do that if you would like to. But you might have to switch up like maybe one thing, you know. Technically, yes.
They're going to quick drive in this.
I wouldn't wash the car with that fluid, but... Oh yeah, no, the ultrasound cleaner is what he was talking about. I usually get
Hi, my name is Eric Touré. Yeah. Actually, I got into it with my son who had the 32. And when he was going to high school, he was turning 16, I said you could get a new car, and he decided I want a Skyline R32. I didn't know what a Skyline was at that time. So we went down to Florida, we looked at this R32 that he had for $20,000. We bought it, brought it back, and I enjoyed driving his car so much that I said I was going to buy me an R34. So, but before I bought an R34, I tested out the R35. And I drove the 35 for a little while. I definitely liked the 34 better. So my son and I went to Japan. We flew to Japan. We drove the 34 there. And in fact, that's where I got my wheels here from Up Garage. And we came back and bought the 34. And this is it. I've had it for about 5 years now, and I enjoy driving it. That's that mix of gas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was cool seeing this thing at TX2K, and then it's neat that now I'm actually riding in it. Like I didn't even think that would happen.
It's a little bit of a bumpy road, but it's not horrible.
Right.
I mean, it could be way stiffer. I've been in cars that just bounce up and down. This is actually very smooth.
Right.
It's surprisingly very smooth. It's got the Nismo suspension.
Right.
And I can tell you on the track, it grabs. It sticks like glue.
Oh, I bet.
And it's so much fun. Again, it does have the four-wheel steering. It's not locked out, so when
the hike is
when I make a turn, I just point the direction I want, and the car just sticks to.
Right.
We were up at Texas 2K. I mean, up at MSR in Dallas, and when we were all doing Skyline Nationals, there were a couple of Mustangs that were out there trying to follow us, and they couldn't. They would go out in the grass. They couldn't.
Oh yeah, of course.
The best cars were even stickier than us was the Porsches.
Oh, okay.
They were just like glue too. But we raced a couple of Lambos. I forget all of the different cars, but there were some R35s there.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, the 35 did great on the quarter mile, but on the track, I felt like you did just as good for a modern car.
Right.
But definitely, this is such a joy to drive.
Nice.
So, needing to support both our 32 and our 34, once we had purchased both of them, I needed to find a good mechanic. And so I found a place called The Shop, and the Shop Houston. And Jay worked there. And to him, I was just a regular customer. He would have never knew that I was going to become a lifetime friend. In fact, I was the dad of the son that had the big wing R32. And my 34 developed a problem, and I decided, hey, I'm just going to pull the engine out, rebuild it completely. And luckily, the shop was nice enough to let me do it there. And Jay saw me, and he says, wow, you're going to rebuild your engine yourself? and I had this little tool set. You're going to need help. And throughout the process, Jay always came over to me and said, hey, do you need any help? And made sure that I built it correctly. And the engine that's in this car is the same engine that Jay helped me rebuild years ago. And I'm very grateful to him, and anytime I have an issue, now that he started his own shop, I come here. Most of the stuff that the shop was doing were R35s. But they did do some R34s. And although Hajime, who's from Japan, was there, between both Jay and Hajime that had done these 34s, I was very confident that the advice that I was getting and the work that I was getting was quality work. And that was one of the main reasons that I stuck with Jay, and I still talk to Hajime as well.
One of the reasons why I also left a lot of the shops is because it became too boring to me. So yeah, it's like I ended up working on cars and dropping transmissions in 2 hours, 20 minutes sometimes, and then switching them out. Full transmission jobs are like 3 hours total, and I was like, I went to lunch, came back, pulled an engine, went home, came back the next day, put a new engine in. It was like so repetitive that it ended up being where I ended up talking to people while doing the job and not even realizing what I was doing, and the job was done. Like my mind wasn't even needed to be there because it was so repetitive. I already remember what to do, and it reminded me just like a dealership. Pretty much I went from like, yeah, I went from being like a normal tech at a dealership repetitively doing transmissions to doing a repetitive turbo kit on the same car over and over and over. It's fun, but it also like, and it makes money, but it becomes too repetitive, and I like stopped thinking about what I was doing. I just did it. And I had no thought process of it anymore. It was just, car coming in, okay, let's do it. Okay, it's out. It makes great money, don't get me wrong. It's amazing for that, but you don't become one with the car. You don't remember that one customer compared to the rest of the customers. You don't remember that car being driven differently than the rest of them because they all do the exact same thing. They all spool the same way. They all act the same way. It doesn't have different cams. I just try to do the best I can to like put out the best product and make them feel as comfortable as possible with this expensive of a car, you know? Absolutely. Like, yes, they might not be R35 customers or Lambo customers or anything else, but these are their dream cars too, so the same amount of effort that should go into those type of high quality cars should also go into this type of high quality car.
My name is Mike Valencia. Yeah, so my R34 is here getting a clean slate. It's kind of a long story with it. Dropped the car off to Jay's and I gave him like $2,000 to start with. Jay's good people, man. He's worked on a lot of my cars. He's worked on pretty much every car I have besides my 1G DSM. They've all came here for something, and he's really flexible with time, and he's always here, and he works with you on stuff, you know, so it's like you're always seeing what's going on. He's really outgrowing this little place here, and eventually he's going to do like, like James Ward did and buy a nice big slab of property out in Waller, Texas, and that's his plans, and then have a dyno after that, and then, you know, because he's really limited here with space and stuff.
There's a lot of cars outside.
Yeah, he's probably got the most Skylines at a shop here in Houston. That's for damn sure.
Is this one of the more known Skyline shops in
Oh
the
yeah,
Houston
definitely.
area?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially guys who are just not getting into the Skyline game. Like after all this time, they find their way here too. You know, like when they first get a car and they want to have it checked over, or maybe they bought it with some problems already on it already. Right. Yeah. Jay at Trinity Tuning, he's definitely like the Skyline specialist. He always has at least about 10 or 15 Skylines here at a time that he's, doing work on.
All right, well, Jay, I appreciate you showing me your shop and telling me your story. It was cool walking around here and seeing a bunch of Skylines. That was pretty neat. I got to ride in a GTR 34. That was pretty cool. Shout out to Eric for letting me do that. But thank you so much, man. This is really cool. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, man, not a problem.
It was a great experience, man. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming over, seeing what we do here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So until the next video, we'll see y'all later. Peace.
Mm-hmm.